I just want to say I love performing comedy. I love having shows. I love doing theater. Just be open-minded and be able to meet more people so that you can add more roles in for the disabled community, especially for authentic representation.
I would like to come back to this idea. I think we all kind of get it, but I would like to hear it in your own words of why it can be so damaging to have perhaps an able-bodied actor playing a disabled role. So I was wondering if Keely, if I could ask Keely that first. Just in your words, like why did we can't be doing this anymore, and just would love to hear why. Or maybe you disagree.
No, I definitely do not disagree. I think if we look back in history and we look at the media's perception of disabled people, we've seen The Hunchback of Notre Dame, we've seen Captain Hook, and so many other different characters, and disability has been shaped into this thing of a caricature or all of these negative stereotypes, and that impacts our society so much. And that's come from disabled people not working behind the camera as well as in front of the camera. So if we keep excluding this incredible, as we've mentioned, incredible talent pool and this whole other community, then we're going to consistently portray people in the wrong light. And as we've also touched on, the media is such a huge power. There's 1 million seconds in a week, but there is 1 billion seconds in 32 years, and 1 billion people watch the media every day. So that is a huge, huge audience. And if we portray disabled people in the wrong light, then the world will see it and believe it. So having authentic representation, celebrating our cultures, and being truly inclusive, both in front and behind the camera, having stories told by disabled people about disabled people, but also not about disabled people. Yeah. Just having disabled storytellers tell everyday stories and all these other cool stories, then we can normalize inclusion, and we can hopefully start to even get away from that term. I feel sometimes we separate diversity and inclusion from the norm, and we go back to trying to tick boxes, but it's much more than that. It's just being, genuine and having that equal treatment. It's not special treatment. It's just true equality. So yes, I think it's incredibly important that we keep encouraging that accessibility so we can have the access to that work, and then authentically representing that work, both in front and behind the camera.
Great, thank you. And I would love to come to CJ next with a similar question, just about what kinds of stories do you want to see being told more and in better ways? And maybe you want to write a one-man show and it has nothing to do with being deaf. Are there dream characters you'd like to see? And you mentioned you're working to help the deaf and disabled community work behind the scenes. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Sorry, that's about 3 questions.
Yes. I just want to go back a little bit about authenticity, because that is so very important. Having the authentic expression. Edgar Wright. Mm-hmm. When he wrote Baby Driver, that I was able to be involved in. First, he was looking for an 85-year-old Black deaf man. And he was looking and he had auditions and he just didn't find it until he found me. I auditioned twice and the producers really said, why did you pick him? Out of all the thousands of people that you saw and you auditioned and you watched, he said, I'm looking for authenticity, and CJ has it. And that is what he saw in me. And I think it's just so important to show how authenticity can impact the role. When you go in and you work, and people were just impressed. They didn't know that I was going to have that kind of talent because they didn't give me the chance. Their perspective changed. They thought they were going to cast a hearing person, and the producers were not not supportive of that to start with, but when they saw the authenticity on the screen, they saw how powerful that impact was. And I feel like that is a word that can resonate throughout everyone. And Edgar, really, how did you do that? I said, how did you find somebody? How did you do this? And he said, I believe that more roles need to be growing like this. Okay, now separately, people are very impressed with just how important it is to look at the skill and the talent, not whether they're disabled, not whether they're hearing, able-bodied. It should be about the talent and being able to collaborate together, take action and be involved. And, we speak with many producers and creators, and this is going for a long time. I've been speaking with these people, and now times are changing and we're able to move forward. And this is the time. And it's interesting, just like you guys were saying, the disabled community is not separate from the able-bodied community. I don't want that. I'm done with it. We need to focus on making sure that everybody has the impact and everybody has the ability to show their talent while we're working together. When we go in the door and I want to be able to have a conversation about an idea, a vision, some people, it shouldn't be always just about, okay, disabled, wheelchair, hearing, deaf. No, I'm not interested in those things. I'm interested in the ideas. I'm interested in the creativity. I'm interested in the knowledge. I'm interested in the human story and connecting and working together. And that's what I'm looking forward to right now.
Great. I want to see more of that. And Ashley, I'd like to come back to you as a writer-director and just to hear more about the kinds of stories you aim to tell. And, can you tell us anything you're working on next?
Yeah, I like to cover the broad range of stories. Single is kind of like an anti-rom-com, and something that I just recently directed is a period World War II piece. So I'm kind of across the board, but my team is like, Ashley, you don't always have to tell stories about disability. But for me, like right now, I find such a lack of them, and the spectrum of stories within the disability community is like, they're not a monolith. We have so many different types of stories. And I wish I had that growing up. I wish I had stories about disability, even about like identity and being disabled. I mean, a lot of people will say, I want a story that doesn't focus on me being disabled, but I'm like, we don't have that film yet that really speaks to it, especially as like a coming of age young person. Like that's something I'm working on, and I want to make is something that, a kid in middle school or high school can watch it and be like, oh, I see myself in a place in the world for me. Because growing up, I never saw anyone who looked different dating. I never saw anyone looking different having a job, being married, like all these things in life that are these milestones. I always felt like they didn't exist for me, and I was terrified to grow up. I was just like, I don't know what to do. And I think I want to make things that speak to that, and once we have more of those films, then I don't need to have identity politics about being disabled, and hopefully you can just have someone in a Marvel movie or in something else, a big, huge movie, that they just are disabled. We don't have to explore that identity anymore. So I think like for me, I'm really focusing on those things that are exploring being disabled. And then, I'm sure as my career grows, I'll move on from that. But right now, that's what I'm exploring.
Yeah, follow your passion for now. That's what we would ask of any storyteller. So that's what you need to do. Grace, I'd love to come back to you and just ask, we've talked a lot about, it's about the talent. You got to find the talent. And are there enough inclusive talents being repped by the major agencies? Or do we see more specialist companies like C Talent with Keely? Would you like to see more inclusion in the sort of people the headshots that come through every day?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very fair question because, I think Keely obviously has, she's curated a list of really talented disabled actors. And I feel like there's another like KMR is another agency that I also work with. But I think the true test is going to be when you see the bigger agencies or even the boutique agencies, that that just don't have just like one or two disabled actors, but actually there's just much more. It feels organic, and that it doesn't feel like you're just, that it feels like like still a marginalized group, that you're just identifying people, you're signing people because you see the potential of how they can grow into, big stars, and that's why you want to be invested in them and nurturing the talent.
Great. I hope there's more of that on the horizon. And also, yeah, the more and more people see this as good business, the more and more people aren't just going to think, oh, this is the morally right thing to do. Maybe agents don't always think that way. So yeah, if it's good business sense, then hopefully we'll see more.
Well, look, and I think like agents, I think that look, they're killers, right? They just are looking to like, what are producers and studios and casting directors looking for? And I think if they see that we have, storytellers and that want to be casting actors with disabilities, I think they then kind of like ratchet it up to like, oh, well then I want to be representing that talent, so that they will then be coming to me to hire my clients. And so I feel like once they see sort of the wave and the and just more disabled actors populated in our shows and features, I think that's when that's going to sort of inspire them to, I think, look beyond just like, oh, feeling like this is just a pocket of people that, maybe that they don't have to be as aggressive about signing. But I think that could change when they see the tide show. Because we have two of our new shows on the fall scheduled have disabled actors featured in meaningful ways, or as new series regulars. So I hope that catches on, that they realize like, oh, I've got to get on this.
Yeah, it can be sort of virtuous circle of change. Yeah, you see the success, right. You try to get more success, and it loops around, and I hope that happens. We're going to have to start wrapping up on time, but I like to end with a call to action. Let's end with some positive advice. I would like to ask each of you, what is one thing you would suggest that specifically the film industry can do to improve its approach to disability and inclusion? I'm going to mention one thing, which is recently, I think it's kind of targeted toward the UK for the moment, but a group called Doc Society and Forward Doc. And in an earlier incarnation, Netflix was also involved with Crip Camp, have put out a toolkit, they call it, and it's just a really helpful document to think about disability at all stages of production and exhibition. And yes, it's written with documentaries in mind, but I think there's so many helpful tips in this document. So I would encourage everybody watching this today, if you care about this topic, a toolkit is a great place to start, or at least realize what you don't know, what you haven't been thinking about. So Grace, can I ask you, what's one thing somebody can do as an action to make our world better?
Well, I think one is like be more and proactive about meeting disabled actors, because I have found that there are a lot of talented people that just aren't given opportunities. So I know that in this last year and a half, while I've been working from home, and where it's so easy to meet people virtually like this, because there's no I don't have to wait for people to come through LA or New York to have generals with them. I've just enjoyed getting to know people, and now I feel like I have like a list of actors now that I'm excited to start thinking about as we're casting our shows. So I would just say, make the effort to actually educate yourself about the talent pool out there.
Great. Find new talent. That should be a goal for everybody in this industry. Craig, I know you might not be so focused on the film industry, but what would one piece of advice be for you? Maybe it's Paralympics related or just in general.
I think my piece of advice is 15% of the global population has a disability. That's 1 in 7 people. Ensure that you have that representation both on screen and off screen behind the camera. And if you invest in it, the talent will come. We've seen that in Great Britain with Channel 4, who've invested in talent on screen and talent who can work behind the cameras and produce shows. And those have now graduated, you could say, from them into other areas of broadcasting around the UK and further away. So ensure you do properly represent persons with disabilities in the same way the progress has been made in terms of gender, sexual orientation and ethnicity in recent years.
Some great advice. Yeah, Channel 4 has been doing some great work. Everybody can investigate that. CJ, could I come to you and ask for one piece of advice to help the film industry do better?
Yes, I have two things actually.
Okay.
One, develop above and below the line talent and productions. Collaborate with streamings, TV, anything. Like, you should have the goal of having above and below the line talent. And I just want to say, I love performing comedy. I love having shows. I love doing theater. Just be open-minded and be able to meet more people so that you can add more roles in for the disabled community, especially for authentic representation.